Hey, welcome everybody back to another podcast from our Realtor series. And we started this out here really to look at the government affairs directors for each of our counties, see what kind of legislation's in the works, what kind of battles that are affecting obviously real estate in each county and MLS listings. So today we're thrilled to be in San Benito County with Karson Klauer, the government affairs director for San Benito County Association of Realtors. Karson, how you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we've been going to county and kind of looking at each different thing, talking to all the JDs. No, you're a pretty young guy, Karson, but you've actually been in this kind of game for a while, right? You were a city council back in 2014 to 2018.
That's correct. Yes, one term, one Hollister.
Gotcha. So it's kind of in your blood. You've been obviously around the political scene for a long time here. A lot of times, when we're talking to a lot of the guys, that some of the maybe more mundane thing is simply going to a city council meeting, sitting there for 6 hours or a nightly session, just to kind of get their portion in. And I think a lot of realtors weren't really, too maybe aware of that. So we definitely like to keep a spotlight on, not only what you guys are up to and all the great work you do, but also to get realtors engaged. Hopefully we're coming into an election year, and get them engaged all the way up to, Ledge Day in May. So we really want to thank you for coming on. I guess maybe we'll take a look back at the last few months and see what you've been kind of dealing with in San Benito. And I know one of the things was the inclusionary housing program, which I guess would implement it like an ordinance requiring at least 20% of new housing to be affordable housing. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's pretty close. Right now, the city of Hollister does not have an inclusionary housing ordinance, and as part of the general plan update process, one of the goals that was put forward by the council at the time was to create an inclusionary housing ordinance. The previous council requested that it be at 20%. Now there's some different rules that the state has regarding 15% and above. So they had to do essentially a study on it to see if it would be feasible for different types of new construction. The consultant who put it together came back and it was essentially infeasible without a very high density bonus. And the council and the planning commission looked at that study and decided that 20% probably wasn't the way to go. And they've adjusted it to 15%. So that's going to be looked at again as part of a new ordinance, but also part of the general plan update process, which hopefully will be completed by next summer.
Gotcha. So right now, was that just back into the more study sessions, more kind of that thing, more community input? Is that kind of the process?
Yeah, so it came out, I believe, around May. There was a meeting that was scheduled for June, got pushed off because the planning commission meeting did happen. Ended up happening in August, got to council in September, and I would say the vast majority of the people who spoke on it and provided input just said that, hey, this is a good idea, but the numbers just aren't going to work. You're not only going to get no inclusionary housing or affordable housing, you're just not going to get construction in most cases because the cost of it would just not make most projects pencil.
Gotcha. As we go to each county, the one kind of, I guess, fundamental thing, no matter where we go in the state of California, is the lack of inventory. All right, it's no secret. Obviously we need a lot more housing. And I don't think it matters, what county. That's kind of, everyone's looking at that same challenge there. But it seems to be you guys have a little bit of maybe pushback in the city council of those who maybe been saying, San Benito's growing too fast, too far too fast. We don't have the infrastructure here, which is kind of, opposite of what I've been hearing from most people saying, we need more housing, we need it now, right? Is that kind of common between city council, the kind of the battle of how much housing, how fast can you do it, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, that sentiment has been around for, I would say, probably close to 6 or 7 years now. We didn't have any housing construction in the city of Hollister from 2002 to about 2012. because of the sewer moratorium and then obviously the Great Recession that happened. We struggle with access from the job centers, so our highways are lacking in many ways. The most people who commute use Highway 25 in and out of town, which is a 2-lane road, and the number of cars that are on it is pretty insane for the size of the road. So it's hard to believe that an exurban area like Hollister and San Mateo County has traffic problems, but I would put traffic problems up against just about anybody else because we don't have an easy second route if the first route is a log jam. So that's something that's on people's minds when growth comes up. It's kind of a difficult conversation because I think that if most people were honest with themselves, they would say that we do have a traffic problem and that we also have a housing affordability problem. So it's a hard conversation to have because most people say, "Hey, I don't want to wait 1 minute longer to get home than I have to do now," and I think that everybody kind of agrees with that. But they also know that if your brother-in-law or your cousin or somebody needs to find a rental, it's essentially pretty close to impossible, even with a little bit more inventory that we've seen in the last few months.
Right. No, I can understand the perspective. I was a little taken aback though. I was like, oh, like you said, I didn't think traffic, but I guess, even here, whenever somebody builds anything across the street from you or whatever, that's the first thing you think of, right? Is how it's going to affect, you personally. But there's no question the need for housing, obviously. I guess they kind of flow into, the next part of which I want to talk about was the whole domestic wastewater treatment plant you guys have in Hollister. I think that you guys had a late city council meeting, back in June maybe, where kind of had a pretty big discussion about adding San Juan Bautista and San Juan Oaks, linking up to that treatment plant, and obviously I think that passed. Is that correct? But not without some pushback, maybe.
Yeah. So our sewer treatment plant, and it's kind of a microcosm of how politics and policy works here in San Mateo County, in that the city of Hollister has most of the commercial business and most of the population for the whole county, but you have two different entities, the county and the city of Hollister, that are always having to work with each other and sometimes butting heads. So to make a long story longer, the sewer treatment plant was built about 15 years ago to fix the situation that came up and ended up happening with the moratorium. So giant treatment facility. I believe it was state of the art at the time, and I think it was about $120 million. So it was a big investment for the community. The city of Hollister owns and manages that, and there's a lot of conflict with growth in the county, and in this case also San Juan Bautista, because San Juan Bautista's had issues with its sewer treatment and actually its water quality for decades now, I believe. And so there's always conflict on, is this a regional facility or is this a city of Hollister facility? And people can look at it either way. And what we've seen the last few months is finally the council's coming around to the idea that, hey, if we have this facility that is as quality as it is and as costly as it was, it should be utilized to its utmost potential. So city of San Juan Bautista, the entire city will be hooked up to the city of Hollister treatment plant via, I believe, like a 7-mile pipeline that's going to bring the effluent to the treatment plant. And then San Juan Oaks also already has, I believe they're going to start construction on homes in the next few months, and they will also likely have the sewer hookup that they were promised a few years ago, actually back when I was on the council.
And I've heard, I saw some numbers, and I don't know if it's exactly maybe ballpark, but that kind of growth would maybe accommodate maybe like 5,000 single-family residential homes by doing so. Does that sound kind of what the thing? I know there's also been a number of residents, especially the support still maybe for a building moratorium. But what do you say to those who say, hey, we need to stop building and we don't have the infrastructure for that kind of growth, even though you're looking at such a housing discrepancy for affordable housing?
Yeah, so most of the reasons that people provide for why they would want a moratorium are misguided. We do hear about water being an issue. The people who handle the water quality and quantity here in San Benito County do a great job. We have plenty of water to sustain the local population and continued growth for the next few decades. Those contracts have been in place for a long time. Water quality has also been improving over the last few years with the addition of the West Hills Water Treatment Facility. People will bring up that we don't have enough capacity in the wastewater treatment plant. That's not true. There's plenty of capacity if you just make the upgrades that were planned for and designed with the facility. There's probably enough capacity to have a whole nother city of Hollister, population wise. People will talk about goals. Schools, for the most part, aside from probably the San Benito or Hollister High School, are doing fine attendance wise. The high school itself is probably over its attendance capacity as it would be currently. The only other thing that would be the roads, and we do have issues with the quality of our roads and accessibility. And the problem is that that's not going to change if you stop growth, because if you look at the way that our roads are funded here, it factors in the potential growth to actually pay for the expansion of the roads. So it's a kind of a catch-22 for roads.
Gotcha. And you actually supported the expansion, right? I mean, I think I think you got quoted. I read it said, that's basically what good planning looks like, right? So you would say you definitely, in terms of support, that's something you would support?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was all planned for, going back probably at least 6 or 8 years. And I believe what we're talking about with the expansion, it's not even like a physical expansion, it's a technological expansion. So it's not a great analogy, but it's not buying another car, it's replacing the engine. It doesn't take up any.
Gotcha. When we go to each county, there's one in terms of each county, and we talk to each, we've been talking to all the GADs about, the specific challenges. Do challenges that maybe that happen, something that pops up in, say, San Mateo or Monterey, for instance. I think we're going to be there next, talking with, basically talking about the rental registry and that kind of a thing. Is that kind of a warning sign for you guys, or you guys pretty much deal with the separate kind of challenges?
I would say that San Benito County is weirdly insulated from what's going on politically in other jurisdictions, because like when we go to CAR and we hear about, okay, this is happening in somewhere in Santa Clara County, or we don't hear about it down here like actually happening. Our main topics have been the main issues for a while now, which would be the growth, the roads. Another one that's coming up shortly is a landfill expansion. So it's hyper local stuff. A lot of our population commutes back and forth, so the things that they deal with on a daily basis are the ones that they're going to keep bringing up.
Gotcha. I hear that a lot now. Hyper local. It's applicable in real estate, certainly in politics, for local issues. Now, going into next year, we're heading into an election year, so that's always exciting. You mentioned that one. Is there anything else you guys see as potential topics there that you want to get realtors kind of engaged on, maybe a call to action or that kind of a thing going into the next year? Or are these topics we've talked about still going to be in play?
Most of these are still going to be in play. I would say the most important topic for our Realtor Association is going to be City of Hollister's general plan update process. That's going to be quiet for the next, I'd say, 6 months before they bring back the updated EIR document and the updated draft. That's going to be super important because there was a lot of changes that were made the last couple months to that document, and getting that finalized and approved before the election will be important for our association.
Gotcha. One thing about this, the city council had a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of, I guess, turnover and that kind of a thing. a little bit of maybe infighting. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but just articles I was reading, about expansion and, maybe the pushback on some of the developers and development. That's kind of going on. But more of what I'm kind of questioning is, how do you guys go about it in terms of the association level, right, of endorsing a candidate or picking a candidates that you think are going to back your legislative agenda? Is there like a committee, or?
Our board has taken the position that we aren't going to endorse any candidates. We do hold a candidates forum where we'll ask questions, and that's essentially for the benefit of the members to be able to make their decision on who they want to support. But the board does not endorse any candidates.
Gotcha. So, Karson, going into next year, then I guess kind of a call to action for any of the realtors out there. We definitely, again, we love to kind of point the spotlight on some of the things that have been going on with these housing initiatives and developments and so forth. But going in next year, what can you do if you're a realtor, you're in San Benito, you want to get involved? There's some of these issues that, you're worried about or want to, know that the impact it could have on your business or real estate in general. Is it going to a city council meeting? Is it, where do they start basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the first thing, I have an email list that I send out a preview of each land use meeting agenda on Fridays. So that's kind of the first place. If you get on the email list, then I can send that information over, and then which meetings might be important, because the council meetings can run fairly long and the board of supervisors run even longer. So if you're going for an item and it ends up not being heard, well, that's kind of a waste of time. So that way, which meetings you should be going to. And then, I would say once you see agenda topics that are interesting to you, go to the meetings, get a feel for the parties that are kind of making this thing happen, whether they're the elected officials or they may be consultants or gadflies or just people who go to every meeting and comment. Because even though we're a small place, there are politics, but there aren't that many movers and shakers that are kind of making it happen. So you can kind of figure out how things are going. And then once you get yourself educated on what's happening, comment. Not that many people will comment on most of these topics. So if you educate yourself and you make your thoughts known, you can actually have an effect on the votes in a place like Hollister and San Benito County.
Fantastic. So, you're doing a fantastic job, Karson. The San Benito County Association of Realtors, thank you for everything you do. I guess I'll leave you with the last word. Kind of anything you want to say, anything to realtors out there, or anything basically regarding the topics, you take it away.
I say just get involved. It doesn't have to be with planning. I mean, you can get into water, or you can get into housing, or you can get into school districts. There's lots of opportunities. I'm sure in some of the other counties that it might be a little harder to get onto boards and stuff, but down here, if you're interested, there's enough councils and committees and where just about anybody who cares can find a position to make a difference. So I'd say get educated, ask questions, and then, hey, join the fun and get on board.
Get educated, get engaged. Karson, thanks again for taking the time with us. And I want to thank everybody for tuning on in, and definitely keep engaged. And I hope we'll see everybody like we're planning on. We're hoping to have before Ledge Day, maybe getting all the government affair directors from the counties, together maybe for one big session before everyone heads on up to the Capitol there. So thanks again so much for coming on. And for everybody, stay tuned, in the future for more of this podcast from our Realtor series. Thanks, Karson.
Yeah, thanks so much.